Have you ever been surrounded by people and still felt completely alone? Not because nobody was there, not because nobody spoke to you, but because somehow, no matter how many conversations happened around you, very few ever felt real. There is a kind of loneliness that doesn't come from being alone. It comes from feeling unseen, misunderstood, disconnected in ways that are difficult to explain. And if you've experienced that, you may have asked yourself a painful question at some point. Why is it so hard for me to form deep friendships? Most people assume the answer is simple. Maybe you're too quiet, too reserved, too independent. But psychology suggests something far more complex. Sometimes the very traits that make someone thoughtful, self-aware, and emotionally deep can also make connection feel unexpectedly difficult. Not because they don't care about people, but because their mind operates differently beneath the surface. And once you understand these patterns, something important begins to happen. You stop seeing yourself as broken and start understanding why certain relationships never felt natural in the first place. One reason many people struggle to build close friendships is that they experience every interaction on multiple levels at once. While others are simply talking, they're observing, reading facial expressions, analyzing tone, noticing subtle shifts in energy, trying to understand what people really mean. Research indicates that highly self-aware individuals often engage in constant social monitoring. Their attention doesn't just stay on the conversation, it turns inward. They become aware of how they're speaking, how they're being perceived, whether they sounded awkward, whether they shared too much, whether they shared too little. Hours later, the conversation is still replaying in their mind, not because they enjoy overthinking, but because their brain struggles to let social experiences go unfinished. The problem is that connection requires presence, and presence becomes difficult when your mind is busy evaluating every moment as it happens. You aren't fully in the conversation. Part of you is standing outside it, watching, measuring, questioning, and people often sense that distance even when you desperately want to connect. But this is only the beginning, because for many people, the challenge isn't just overthinking, it's what they notice about others once they stop overthinking themselves. Some people possess an unusual ability to see beneath social masks. They notice forced enthusiasm, insincere compliments, hidden motives, contradictions between words and behavior. Psychologists often associate this with heightened social perception, the ability to recognize emotional patterns that others overlook. At first, this sounds like an advantage, and sometimes it is, but it comes with a cost, because once you begin seeing behind appearances, casual interactions become exhausting. You find yourself craving honesty in places where performance is the norm. You want depth in environments built around small talk. You want authenticity in situations designed for social comfort. And gradually, you stop participating in conversations that feel artificial, not because you're judging people, but because pretending feels emotionally expensive. Unfortunately, many people misunderstand this. They interpret your quietness as disinterest, your selectiveness as arrogance, your boundaries as rejection, when in reality, you're simply searching for something genuine. And genuine connection is far rarer than most people realize. Yet another pattern appears in people who spend much of their life walking alone. They become exceptionally good at carrying their own burdens. When life becomes difficult, they rarely reach outward. They turn inward. They solve problems alone, process emotions alone, recover. Studies have found that emotional self-reliance can create a powerful sense of independence, but it can also create invisible walls. Because friendship isn't built only through shared experiences, it's built through mutual significance. People feel connected when they matter to each other, when they're allowed to support, comfort, encourage, protect, when you never reveal your struggles. Others often assume you don't need them, and over time, they stop trying to get closer, not because they don't care, but because every door appears closed. The strange thing is that many independent people secretly long for connection. They just don't know how to invite others into a life they've learned to manage alone. And beneath that independence is often something even deeper, a fear that vulnerability may not be met with understanding. Which brings us to another hidden reason friendships become difficult. Some people have spent so much of their life feeling different that they unconsciously expect rejection before connection even begins. Maybe they were misunderstood growing up. Maybe they learned that expressing themselves led to criticism. Maybe they felt out of place for years without knowing why. Psychologists suggest that repeated experiences of social disappointment can shape future expectations. The mind begins protecting itself, not through obvious avoidance, but through emotional caution. You stop opening up too quickly. You stop trusting easily. You stop assuming people will understand you. And while these protective habits reduce emotional risk, they also reduce emotional intimacy. The walls that keep pain out often keep closeness out as well. And many people don't realize they're doing it. They simply call it being careful, being realistic, being independent, without noticing how much of their loneliness is actually self-protection in disguise. There is another pattern that often goes unnoticed. Some people spend their entire life trying to understand themselves. They question their beliefs, examine their behavior, reflect on their experiences, constantly searching for deeper truth. This level of introspection can lead to remarkable personal growth, but it can also create a feeling of separation, because the more deeply you examine life, the harder it becomes to participate in shallow versions of it. Conversations that once felt entertaining now feel repetitive. Surface-level interactions feel draining. You find yourself craving discussions about meaning, purpose, emotions, growth, identity, things many people rarely discuss. And because of that, you may begin feeling disconnected even when surrounded by others. Not because you're superior, not because you're more intelligent, but because you're searching for a different level of conversation than most social environments naturally provide. And perhaps one of the most painful truths is this: some people care deeply, far more deeply than others realize. They simply struggle to express it. Research indicates that emotional expression varies significantly from person to person. Not everyone communicates affection through words. Not everyone knows how to verbalize what they feel. Some people show love through loyalty, through consistency, through presence, through acts of support. But many relationships depend on visible emotional signals. And when those signals aren't expressed clearly, misunderstandings emerge. People assume you don't care, when in reality, you care intensely. You simply speak a different emotional language, and that difference can quietly create distance over time. By now, you may be recognizing parts of yourself: the overthinking, the independence, the caution, the desire for authenticity, the difficulty expressing emotions, the longing for depth. If so, there is something important you need to hear. These traits are not evidence that something is wrong with you. They are adaptations, ways your mind learned to navigate the world. Some helped you survive difficult experiences. Some protected you from disappointment. Some allowed you to understand yourself more deeply. But every strength carries a shadow, and every protective strategy comes with a cost. The goal is not to become someone else. The goal is to understand yourself well enough to know when those patterns are helping you and when they're keeping you isolated. Because despite what loneliness may have convinced you to believe, connection is not reserved for certain types of people. You do not need to become louder, more outgoing, more superficial, or more agreeable. You simply need relationships where your depth is welcomed instead of tolerated, where your honesty feels safe, where your silence isn't misunderstood, where your presence is appreciated exactly as it is. And those connections do exist. Sometimes they simply take longer to find. So if you've spent years wondering why friendship has felt difficult, perhaps the question was never, "What's wrong with me?" Perhaps the better question is, what patterns have I been carrying all this time? Because understanding those patterns changes everything. It transforms confusion into clarity, isolation into self-awareness, and self-awareness into the possibility of genuine connection. And maybe that's where healing begins. Not when you force yourself to fit into every room, but when you finally understand why certain rooms never felt like home. If this resonated with you, and you want more psychology that helps you understand yourself on a deeper level, subscribe to the channel. Because the more clearly you understand your mind, the less alone you begin to feel.